Today's episode dives into the transformative shift from cash to cashless.
A digital economy or an ecosystem thrives much faster, grows much faster, because you're merging all those physical environments into a single environment.
Why this innovation has been disruptive.
It's different with digital commerce. You need to embed that payment experience into your app. That is a different type of challenge, and not a lot of businesses get into those technicalities.
What's your take on this? Biometrics, blockchain, artificial intelligence that are going to reshape the future of payments.
Biometric. Today, that device is your smartphone. We live today in a digital world. If you're interested and you see some traction in MarketX, you need to have 1, 2, 3 types of digital payments.
Welcome to Access Tomorrow, where we dive into the world of payment, innovation, and commerce. I'm your host, Leila Serhan. In each episode, we'll explore commerce from various angles, from the viewpoint of small business owners to the wider perspective of financial institutions. We'll uncover what drives success and explore ideas and strategies that fuel growth. This podcast is brought to you by Visa. Today's episode dives into the transformative shift from cash to cashless. We will discuss the technological, behavioral, and business trends driving this global change. And we have the perfect guest for this discussion. Joining us today is Ali Abulhasan, who is the founder and CEO of Tap Payments. Tap Payments was piloted in 2013, but actually started operation in 2014, with the aim of simplifying online payment processes for startups and SMEs. Tap now supports over 100,000 businesses, integrating local businesses with global e-commerce platforms. Ali's background spans across the oil and gas sector, as well as financial institutions. He was even recognized as one of top Kuwaiti entrepreneurs by Forbes. With Ali as our guide, we aim to equip listeners with insights on the future of digital transactions and their implications for businesses and consumers alike. Ali, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's great
a pleasure.
to have you.
Thank you.
So Ali, let's dive in. And I want to begin talking about e-com, which is, I think, where you probably have seen the most growth. And you talk a lot about the growth of digital payments. So could you elaborate a little bit on the factors that contributed to this growth? And what opportunity does it present for both local and international businesses in the MENA region?
First, it's important to highlight when we think of e-com, we're thinking digital.
Yeah.
And when we look at digital, you're realizing that economies on a digital environment is much, has much bigger potentials than physical environments. Why? Because you're merging all those physical environments into a single environment. So a digital economy or an ecosystem thrives much faster, grows much faster. And you see that in every country. And that plays a role with financial inclusion and digital payments. So when we see that, it's important to understand the different stakeholders that are playing a role into transforming a physical economy into a digital economy, whether it's related to having internet, having the devices, having the tools to perform payments, having the logistics to actually fulfill those services or orders or products. All of those play a very important role into achieving the digital, goals and having that digital economy. Now, when you achieve that, it bridges the horizons for any company or any, individual who has the ambition to serve a market to reach endless opportunities.
Yes.
Because you can be anywhere in the world, and if you go digital, you can reach the east or the west. Now, doing so allows you to actually expand the opportunity of which market segments that you want to focus on, which markets you want to address, and you can do it from the same place that you're in. So the mindset of building something or a product to serve a market that is in a digital ecosystem is completely different than a physical, because it allows you to expand your horizons. That's how I would start with ecom, because it started out with ecom, but today it's even beyond ecom. It's actually all digital,
Yes.
basically.
So when we hear you talking about expanding the region, the world, um, it's we think of the big players. How do you bring SMEs into this world?
Of course. Well, let's put a fact. When you look at big players, they know, or they've studied, or they have the teams that know where to go and navigate in different markets. When you work with startups and SMEs, they're exploring and discovering themselves. And they usually start off with a market, and they don't really know if it's going to build traction in that market or another market.
Yes.
Now, if you do it digitally, it gives the opportunity for that startup or SME to actually have the option, or like the surprise, I would say, that they thought it would work in market X, but it worked in market Y. Now, that is totally possible with a digital economy. And that happens when you have a region like the beautiful region of the Middle East. It's very, let's say, very
Diverse.
it's diverse. It has its own beauties in every country, and it's very different from one another. Now, that gives the opportunity for companies to actually, when they go online, they would see what works in what country versus the other. Now, that is possible with ecom, because you can be based out of Dubai, and you can come and say, well, I want to serve my customers in another country, in the region, or outside the region.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's the potential out of that? The potential is the growth of that company can expand really quickly.
Yes.
Because your market size became much bigger.
Suddenly.
Yes. Because if you look at, let's say, the populations of the different countries here in the region, and if you want to take it even more to the potential of the region, what about North Africa?
And Egypt.
And yes, and Levant, all of it, how it
Yes.
plays a role with each other. And we, in a fact, that we're a region that is very much interconnected. Even though every country has its own identity and DNA, we're very much interconnected with each other. And our businesses are very much merged with one another. We don't feel it when we deal with physical, let's say, businesses.
Yeah.
But when you go digital, it's obvious.
Yes. So we talked about digital presence. Let's zoom in a little bit on digital payments,
Sure.
right? And what's for the small and medium-sized business owners to start accepting digital payments? What are the key steps that they need to take in this transition, keeping in mind again this regional view, this ecom drive?
Well, it's important to highlight that a lot of companies in any of the countries in the region only are exposed to the behaviors of their market that they're in. Now, they need to work with companies that help move them online and help provide basically the digital payment infrastructure that allows them to get paid to their potential in every market that they're in. Now, it's important to have payments such as Visa, which is across all the markets, and to reach the potential of your customers there. And what plays a role there is how to have the localization of the currencies and the language of what actually works. Because let's look at it from a perspective in Visa. Visa in some markets are referred to as credit cards.
Yes.
Other markets, they're also debit cards. And that is a very important piece that needed to be highlighted for companies when they address their customers. And because sometimes in some market, believe it or not, there are consumers that do not know that Visa works on debit. It only works on credit. But here in the UAE, for example, it works on debit and credit. So it's important to highlight those things and to have the right partner that helps that business achieve the reach for their customers. So what's important for a startup or a SME is to find the right party that understands how to help grow the startup with their journey to address their market audience. And that's what we do with companies. We actually highlight to them, if you're interested and you see some traction in Market X, you need to have 1, 2, 3 types of digital payments there, because there are card payments and there are now many different types of payments, whether it's a digital wallet, whether it's a stored value or a pass-through wallet. And now you see it a lot with the pass-through wallets that are linked with devices such as Apple Pay. You have a big traction happening in the region because of how much we are a card-based, I would say, digital payment economy that is now moving towards digital cards through digital wallets.
Through the digital wallets.
Yes.
But obviously, when you look at the MENA region, it's not the same. It's not the same. It's very fragmented. I mean, you have countries like Saudi or the UAE where a big percentage are already very much digital.
Yes.
But then you go to countries like Egypt, for example, where this is still considered a cash.
True.
A cash and / wallet economy.
True.
So what's your advice to those small businesses in terms of adapting to this fragmentation, specifically in the world of payment?
There is no one approach to all, especially if you're in the region that we're in. If you look at the exposure to digital ecosystem, the basis comes in with having the access to internet, having access to smartphones, and then you have digital payments. Now, if you look at the GCC, you have all three. But if you go to North Africa, you will have the internet, you will have the smartphones, but digital payment is still growing, I would say, and there is a lot of work to be done there. So what is important there? It's like, how is the behavior of consumers that are playing over there at the moment? Whether it is through a stored value wallet, whether it is cash, we look at the behavior of consumers and we make sure such type of payments that are being adopted in every market are available for those businesses. One very important piece that is from a business perspective that's completely different from a consumer's perspective. From a consumer's perspective, you choose how you want to pay. That's your preferred way of payment. But if you're a business, you don't choose how you want to get paid. You need to support all the different types of payment methods. So any type of customer would walk in and pay with their preference. So my recommendation would be for businesses that are trying to serve their customers, don't limit your options, because you never know what are the preferred behaviors of different consumers. And it differs from one country to another. And that's the beauty of our region. We got exposed to it really quickly as a company that is born out of the region. And we learned that we need to be very open-minded with all the different behaviors.
It's interesting you say this because we've run a survey across a number of markets in the MENA region. And one of the questions was around what are the forms of payment? I mean, what is your preference in terms of payment? And I think in most countries, between 75% to 85% of consumers actually said, I would actually change stores or online stores if they don't offer me the right form of payment.
True.
And then as a small business, then you lose your consumers because you're not giving them the experience that they're looking for.
And think about it from that perspective where small businesses care about their liquidity.
Yeah.
Every penny they invest into marketing for a market segment, they want to make sure that there's returns. So if you don't have the right digital payment options that are needed in that market, you can invest 100, If you have the right options, you can materialize that and give even more returns. But if you don't have the right options, you can get a fraction of that
Yes.
investment.
How many payment options do we have in this region?
Today we support more than 15.
Wow.
So that's basically how interesting it is here. And what becomes complex, it's not about just having different types of card payments. It's also where you have stored value, you have mobile wallets, you have digital wallets that are linked with devices, and you have many different, now BNPLs are coming out, playing a very important role there. And who knows what's going to happen later with crypto.
Yes, exactly.
So basically, there are a lot of different forms that we see.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about the region here is that if you look at a company that's running globally, their needs to serve the different behaviors are the same needs of running in the Middle East. It's the same, like we're like a smaller version, a mini version of the world with the different behaviors. So if you do it very well here, you can actually expand internationally even faster because you got exposed to it in an early stage.
And do you see this kind of fragmentation and variety in Europe, for example, or in the US?
So Europe is very much different in, let's say, behavior from one country to another. It's not the same. You see that. You would see it also being, let's say, different in South America. But it's more it's more similar to, let's say, it's not yet all card based, but there is a lot happening of digital, similar to Africa, I would say.
Yes, of course.
And if you go to Asia Pacific, that's also a market that you see a lot of behaviors in. Now, the markets where we see there is, let's say, a standardized harmony of behavior across a wide range of, let's say, consumers, it's either in North America, the majority, there are a lot of options, but let's say the majority is unified across multiple options, or you go to China.
Yes, exactly.
Those are the two main markets where it is unified, I would say. But if you go to the rest of the world, it's very fragmented.
Yes. And I think another part of the payment industry that is also quite fragmented, I would say, is obviously regulations and government.
Of course,
right? And so you talk a lot about the dynamic landscape of regulation in this region. I'd love to hear from you, maybe hear a little bit about your experience actually expanding across all of these markets with different regulators that you had to deal with.
So it's important to highlight that we started when regulation was not yet ready for us. That's around 10 years ago. So
you opted to ask for forgiveness but not ask for permission.
Well, it depends on the market, I would say. But it's important, even when you ask for forgiveness, depending on the market that you're in, you need to have alignment with the regulator.
Yes, of course.
That's very important. Now, there is always a level of disruption that innovation comes with. But when you're in a regulated industry, and especially in financial services, you need to measure that level of disruption that you want to do. So one of our main, let's say, cornerstones of how we wanted to build the company from day one is we want to be proactive with the regulators. And we have been focusing on exposing ourselves to the regulators and finding the right solutions. Whenever regulation is not yet ready, how can we make it work with bring value added to the market? Is it through a partner regulated entity? That's an option at the time. You need to think outside the box. It's not just sometimes fintech founders believe like, okay, I want to go and disrupt. Okay, but is the market ready for that disruption? So disrupting is not about just saying, oh, I want it in my way. It doesn't work that way. You need to understand and mediate what is accepted in that market and find the right channel of communication that allows you to operate in that market. And that's part of the direction we took from day one.
Yes.
Believe it or not, the first party we met with in Saudi Arabia, when we entered Saudi Arabia, was the regulator. That was the first number one party. And we've done similarly in other countries.
Yes.
Now, when you go to markets, you have different behaviors of regulators. Some are very much willing and wanting to innovate and have the, let's say, the endorsements to do that. And we do see that a lot happening in Saudi.
Yeah. With the sandbox, obviously.
Yes. Yeah, we were very lucky to be part of the first cohort of the sandbox. We got in to be licensed as the first online payments provider in Saudi. And that allowed us to be exposed. And there was a very open, let's say, conversation happening between the regulator and us and what would work and how it should be done. Sometimes they would give input to us, we would give feedback to them, and the sandbox is a very good starting point, I would say. And it gives you like a way to prepare you, and then you go to be licensed and then start operating as a payment institution. Now, other countries, they come and ask you to get licensed directly, which also works very well, as long as that regulator gives you the guidance for that. And there are markets that we see that, such as Bahrain.
Yeah.
Bahrain, we got regulated directly, and they had a very clear direction of how to do it. And it was like a very nice journey, I would say. Other markets where, let's say, Kuwait, it's where we started. We had always a relationship with the regulator. But at the same time, regulation was not yet developing. When it got developed, we were part of being amongst the first license there. And basically, what happened there is that the regulator knew that they're not ready with regulation, but they opened and extended their let's say, relationship with us and keeping an eye on us. So they actually helped us grow a lot, even though regulation was not in place. So I gave you 3 different examples of regulators. One regulator taking a sandbox, one regulator coming licensed directly, another regulator, there is no regulation yet, but we want to work with you. That's the beauty of the region. It's not one direction. Now, it's similar now, you see it here in the UAE, where it became, now we're in a stage in the region where regulation has matured a lot. Still, there is a long way to it, I would say, but it is way more advanced than where it was before. And the momentum happened very quickly, I would say, from COVID onwards. That's what we've noticed.
That was a big trigger for them, of course. Yes. So, and when you think of some of the key consideration to ensure compliance, so you mentioned partnering with a regulated entity or getting regulated directly. But when you think, I mean, what is your advice to a new fintech that wants to expand in the region?
So
your advice to your competitors?
No, I would. To be honest, it's not about just competition. We're in a region where the more the players that are participating and would help elevate the ecosystem, this is much needed in the region, and that's part of how we work in TAP. I've actually given advice to founders and get to be regulated in some markets because of the regulators, and some listened and they got regulated, and others just kept it and said, we'll deal with it later. I think we're all peers here and we're trying to elevate. Yes, we compete, but it's healthy. But what I would say to fintechs, it's all about time going to market. We were in a time where we need to build things because we had no choice. Would I do the same thing today with the tools that are available today? If someone can give me that shortcut,
you would do it.
I would take that shortcut.
Of course.
Now, We were in a time where we didn't have those shortcuts. We need to build it ourselves and invest into it. Now, why repeat what we've done for the past 10 years? Right on top of what has been built. And I'm not saying what was done in 10 years would be taking another 10 years. No, it might take another 5 years, I would say. But those 5 years, you can reduce it to a year. It depends on the strategy of another fintech, whether it's in payments or any other line in fintech. So my advice, it depends on their value proposition that they want to do, how they want to position themselves in the market. And at the end, we're all trying to speed up the process. We don't want to repeat things that has been done because the region is in need of speed.
Yes.
And it is being understood and being grasped much faster now. You see it in the countries that we're in right now, where it's just catch up that's happening.
We're catching up.
Catching up to the world, basically, and to ourselves. So doing that, we learn from each other and we move things forward. That's how I see it.
Okay. So we talked about digital payments, e-com, the fragmented region, the regulation. I want to move a little bit more into the tech.
Yes.
And maybe talk about the current tech and future tech.
Yes.
And in the current tech, so you talk a lot about this single API that you provide to your customers. And it's, so can you just help our listeners understand
Sure.
why this innovation has been so disruptive, I would say, in your line of business?
Sure. So first, we look at the technology that is interfacing merchants. Merchants need to, because what's the beauty of digital commerce that's different from physical commerce. When you're a business or a merchant in physical commerce, you're interested in that terminal. Get me that terminal, I just need to input the amount and that's it. How it works, how it's integrated to the cash register, if it's integrated or not, it really doesn't make a huge difference for that business because they have that device, they get that receipt, and the money, they get paid. Now, it's different with digital commerce. Digital commerce, that device is actually merged into the store because imagine you're a physical store, now you're a website or an app. You need to embed that payment experience into your app. That is a different type of challenge for businesses, and not a lot of businesses get into those technicalities. How can we, let's say, simplify it? Yeah. One thing is we need to provide the right tools, whether they're APIs or SDKs or libraries or plugins that allow you to speed up the integration as fast as possible to be incorporated with the best experience for that store. Now, the fact that we're in a region with a lot of different payment methods and every payment method has a different integration experience, a different way of payments. Some are, let's say, you get a payment acknowledged at the time of the transaction. Some would come after a time, like after a few minutes.
Yes.
If you're doing a cash payment in Egypt, it can be after half an hour or an hour or even more. So how can you build the technology that bridges all of them together and give us single standard while maintaining all those different experiences? And that's how it all started with a single API.
Wow.
The API at the end is an interface that allows you to exchange information between two parties. But if you are having different behaviors, some payments need redirections, some are so we call them technically synchronous payments and asynchronous payments.
Yes.
So when we look at that, that plays a role, and the experience that customer with that merchant website goes through, is it embedded into that page or is it a redirection? Of course, having it embedded into the page is the most important thing. Now, imagine you want to put a card payment and putting a device payment such as Google Pay or Apple Pay. That's a two different type of integration. Now, how can we make it all one? This is what we've done. So we allow through the same API to accept all the different types of payments with the same flow, with just differentiating what's asynchronous from synchronous. That's one. Two, we also acknowledge that APIs is a starting point. SDKs and libraries also are very important. So what do we mean by that? We build a lot of APIs. One API is to actually authorize a payment and capture that payment, basically. But to do that, sometimes you need to tokenize the card or the payment. Sometimes you have a customer that saved their form of payment. Sometimes you have an order. You have a lot of different APIs that allow you to perform that actual transaction. So in order to not complicate things also, because there are, let's say, developers that like to work with all those APIs, but it's also could be very challenging of how to put it together. So we built SDKs that are pre-built with talking to those APIs. So you don't need to talk to the APIs also. So we took another level and said, well, look, you can embed that SDK into your application or website, and it will do everything for you to talk to all those APIs. Because let me give you a little example there. Today, there are payment methods that support many currencies, but some payment methods support a single currency. When you write a code as a developer, and that's what we, let's say, undervalue what developers go through. They have to write the logic of every piece of communication that is taking place in that integration. If I want to accept a Saudi riyal, what are the payment methods I should allow to pass to that API?
Yes.
We don't really think about all of that.
Yes.
Which payment methods support card saving? Which payment methods are digital device payments? And you need to know, should I show an Apple Pay or a Google Pay? And which payment methods support the different features? Now, all those logics need to still be considered when you work with APIs. SDKs that we've built, they remove all of this logic away from the developer. So the developer gets empowered by simplifying all their lines of codes that they need to build, because we give them an off-the-shelf integration. Basically.
Excellent.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting because we always say that the payment world is not complicated, but it is so complex.
It is complex.
It is complex.
And our role is to simplify it. And the beauty of being in this industry is when you are building something that is not noticed, that means you're doing your job.
Yes, exactly. Because we don't see it.
You don't see it. When you don't see it and you're just so transparent and seamless,
It's seamless, yeah.
then you have actually achieved the goal.
It's
now,
true.
to achieve that, there is a lot of work.
Yes.
And people don't always realize that, basically.
So moving to future tech, I mean, we hear a lot about biometrics, blockchain, artificial intelligence that are going to reshape the future of payments, of the payment industry. What's your view? What's your take on this? What is here? What's coming?
So there is a lot of buzzwords happening in all of those topics. And some of them are building traction, and some of them we're waiting for that traction to start being built. If we talk about biometric, I believe we're already living it today. Today, I do not remember the last time I did a transaction without biometric. If I am paying with my Apple Pay or Google Pay, at the end, I'm authenticating it with my Face ID.
Yes.
So if I'm authenticating that way, that means I'm always paying with a biometric authentication. So that we don't realize it, but we're actually living it. That's one thing. Because usually there is a lot of, let's say, perception that biometric is just about going to a store, going to a device and putting your face and paying. Well, today that device is your smartphone. And
It's true.
and you're carrying it, and it's actually doing all that.
Yes.
So that's from biometric. If we talk about, let's say, crypto or AI, I mean crypto or blockchain, I would say. Crypto or blockchain, there has been always a topic on that for a long time. There's a blockchain angle of things, and there's a crypto angle of things. Both, the traction is still early. There's a lot of talk on it, but it's we're waiting for that to see how it actually builds momentum. I believe what helped a lot with building that momentum, some of the products that Visa came out with, which is paying with your fiat currency that is linked
on your
with
crypto.
Yes,
With your
so
crypto wallets.
with your crypto wallet. So
Yes.
that actually built some momentum there. But is it really out there yet? It's still a niche where you have a niche market where they would like to pay using those types of payments. But is it mainstream? It's not yet.
Not yet.
So biometric is already mainstream. Crypto or blockchain is not mainstream. If we go to AI, there's a lot of use cases. There are use cases from a business side as a payment company, where it helps us how we actually offer our services from different angles, whether it's value added to clients, whether it is giving value added to the customers who are paying to our merchant clients, or managing also risk and fraud. Because when you go digital, it's I don't want to call it, it's in a way, it's similar to the Wild West.
Yes, exactly.
So we need to be acknowledging that we live today in a digital world where it is very new to all of us. We find out new things every day, every week that we didn't know about before. Now, how to react to it is the important thing.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to safety, I think AI plays a role there. That's one tool of using AI. There are many other tools that makes me, I don't want to think about AI. But there are a lot of good use cases I would focus on. And that's where there is a lot of value added there. Of course, to utilize AI well, it's all about organizing your data. How do you maintain the data within your organization? How do you categorize it? How do you put it together? Because at the end, AI, if it can understand what it's actually seeing and you guide the AI how to handle it,
exactly.
then it will work very well.
How do you actually also use this data?
Exactly.
A lot of organizations today do not use the wealth of data that they have.
So I believe what AI is going to do, it's going to be able to bring out the opportunity of this data that is already available for the parties that are in this industry. That's where I see it.
And what's next for tap payments?
I think what's interesting that we've been running now for around 10 years. And we've achieved in bridging a lot here in the region. Is it enough? It's not enough. So what we're doing, we still believe there is a lot of work to be done here in the region. And we are investing so much into flourishing and bringing out the potential of the region and bridging the region to the world. And what do we mean by that? It's a fact that the region we're in is a hot region globally. Everybody's looking at us.
Yes.
And we have realized that a few years back. And from let's say the momentum that we've noticed, and it started before COVID actually. And what we believe is how can we bridge and integrate the region internationally? So this is something that we're very much interested in. And we want to make sure we are a player that plays an important role into putting a seat of the region internationally. How to do that is by incorporating the digital economy of the region with the international digital economy. That's how we position ourselves and what's next for us.
That's very big ambitions. I want to close with a final question that is maybe a little bit more going to you as an entrepreneur, as a successful entrepreneur, Ali. Can you share a pivotal moment that you had in your career that brought you where you are today?
I believe I've always had a challenge because I'm a founder, started a company where the mindset of the peers around us, especially if you're starting something from the region, is you always build something that is not going to expand globally. You always think, let me just do it in the country I'm in, or maybe a neighboring country. Now, it changed from where we started till today. Now you see a lot of, let's say, there is that ambition for regional. I believe the ambition for every startup is to go global from here in the Middle East. There's so much potential, there's so much talent, and the challenges that we have to address the market we're in makes us ready to actually serve our customers globally. And that's the beauty of the region we're in. Now, because it's very diverse, it's very fragmented, it allows you to get exposed to all the different behaviors in a very early stage in your journey as a startup. It's more challenging, I would say, because you need to invest more in a very much early stage, and the returns would come in a longer period, I would say, compared to other markets in the West or in the East. But the long-term approach of an investment, it has a lot of huge potential. Now, one thing that I had to take as an approach in order to embed this mindset for myself at least, and I try to do it with few of my colleagues, and I believe it's already happening, where we look at the region as a single region, as if it's a single country. And whenever we operate, we should not feel like, oh, I'm traveling from this country to another country. No, I'm just traveling from one place to another because I have what I need to do. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, my morning was in Kuwait. My afternoon was in Riyadh. This morning, I'm in Dubai. This evening, I'm flying to the US. And that's just in 2 days. So you need to have that mindset.
A true global citizen.
Yeah, it's a bit challenging, but it's a mindset that you need to embed in yourself if you want to be out there and actually building something that is supporting the region. Now, when you have a bigger team, that makes it much easier, of course. But does it stop that traveling? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I don't want to comment on my personal life. I would say
we'll do it another time.
That would be another time. But I'm very lucky to have a family that's supporting me.
That's great. Ali, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think we've gained some really valuable insights from all the work that you're doing in this region, what's happening in the world of digital payments, what's coming from a tech perspective. And of course, we'll continue to see your growth across the globe. So thank you so much, Ali, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today. We're dedicated to providing you with fresh and bold insights from our region. So don't miss our next episode. Until then, stay informed, stay inspired, and always strive to stay ahead of tomorrow. Thank you once again for listening and watching Access Tomorrow, brought to you by Visa.